Hi everybody, it's Gina and welcome back to my channel. Today's project I'm going to be working with tags. And at this point I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with these tags. All I wanted to do at this point was to put them together, and I wanted to make sure they could fold front ways and backwards. So I'm adding tape to put them together and thought I would add pieces on the edges as well. I think if I were to do it again, I would go ahead and tape the bottom, and possibly the tops too in the middle, just to give it additional support. In the end, it came in pretty handy to have the pieces on the edges. I felt like it helped make the paper strong. I'm covering it with some clear gesso, and I covered everything and dried it. I decided I would use the Decoupage Technique to add color to the project. And as you can see, I had that big plastic bag. That's where I keep my pieces of paper towel that, I've used to wipe up color from other projects. I saved those, as you could tell. And so I was digging in there and I found these pieces of paper towel with the colors I thought I might want to work with. So I have them on Podge and I'm tearing them up and I'm starting to apply them. Just going to work front and back and try to get it covered. As you can see, the decoupage piece really took the longest. It took a while to put all the little squares on, and as you can see, there's a lot of edges sticking up, so I have to go around and make sure I try to flatten those down. As usual, I'm using my fingers. I can't seem to do an art project without getting my fingers dirty. Sometimes it's just the easiest way to get something done. Alright, I gave that a good dry, and that's it. As you can see, there are areas that are empty, but I do come back and fix that. Just there you go. I add some ink. Now I'm going over it with the bone folder just to make sure that they will still fold, because I did decoupage over, the creases on both sides actually. So, I do flip it over, and I don't know if I filmed that, but I did flip it over and use the bone folder the opposite way as well, just to make sure. As you can see here, I'm using some stamps just to give a little bit of fun interest there. I have 2 stamps, and I will include the names of the stamps as well as all of the products that I use. They will all be in the description box below. Okay, once that's done, I wanted to add some more texture, and so I grabbed some cheesecloth and I'm going to spray it with an ink spray. And whoo boy, did that get really blue. It turned out it was a little more blue than I really wanted for the piece. So see, there's the blue that I wanted, the lighter one. So I took one of the pieces that had so much ink and just sprayed it and pulled the color from it. It's all over my fingers. Just that one piece, I was able to color 3 more pieces of cheesecloth. So now I'm just laying them out just to get an idea what they're going to look like. Now I'm going to try to apply them. I'm pulling out the edges. They really got rumpled, and it turned out that I needed to snip off some. There was just more cheesecloth there than I needed. And I am still using the Mod Podge to adhere that. I realized that 2 of the pieces had cloth from the top to the bottom, and the first section didn't, so I added a little extra just at the top just to keep them all kind of on the same page. I'm going around cleaning up the edges, and there we go, and it still folds. I thought it was a little bold still as far as the blue is concerned, so I wanted to go over it with some white gesso. This is heavy white gesso, and it's also great for bringing out the texture. So you can really see the texture of the cheesecloth pop out once I wipe it with some gesso. And of course, I started with a brush and switched to my fingers, because that's how I roll. Now here I'm spraying a little bit of water. I didn't do that on the other ones. I think I just had too big of a glob and I wanted to disperse it. As you can see, I switch back and forth between the brush and my fingers. Once the gesso is on and dried, I decided it needed some sparkle. So I grabbed a Versa marker watermark pen. It was brand new and just wanted to hit some spots, and I applied some translucent embossing powder. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know if that was a good idea because of all the netting with the cheesecloth. But I think it turned out pretty well. And I was super excited that you could actually see the embossing powder on the video. Yeah, right here I got super stuck. I really had a hard time trying to figure out what to do next. But I remember my mother's birthday was coming up, and I thought I would make her a little notepad. And her favorite color is blue. So on this back side, I went ahead and tried to mirror the front side and make it a little more blue. This side was more yellowish, orangish, and I just really wanted it to be more cohesive. Here I'm adding some distressed micro glaze because I had just used some of the distressed ink. And looking back, I'm not sure if I should have done that, and I'll explain more about that in a little bit. Now I looked at it, and of course it did not look nearly blue enough, so I'm going back in with some more distressed ink. And again, I'll give you that exact color down in the description box. I'm going over with some white gesso on this side as well. Again, just to kind of keep everything blended and give an overall cohesive look. Once the gesso has dried, I just fold it again just to make sure it does still fold. You'll see me do that probably a few more times. Now I wanted to add a pocket, and I found this piece of, actually I believe it's a cardstock, and it's one that I had used in a previous project as like to sop up the leftover distressed ink. And as you can see, there was just all kinds of colors on it. Mostly blue, but there was a lot of white space. So I added some yellow, again, just to make it blend into what I already had down. Now I went ahead and covered them both with Mod Podge just to protect the paper. And it's funny, it almost gives it kind of a leathery feel, at least to me. Before I adhere it on, I give it an edging with some of the blue distressed ink. And I'm covering all of that with distressed glaze as well. Here is where I start to get into trouble. I use multimedia matte, and this stuff sticks really, really well. But as you'll see in just a little bit, it was really struggling to stick on this paper. Paper to paper is a no-brainer for this stuff, but I believe it was the coating I used. It's either the distress glaze or possibly even the Mod Podge. One of them, or maybe the combination of the both of them, something was just really giving me a hard time and not allowing my adhesives to stick very well. So again, I'm making sure it closes. Here are the papers that I'm going to use to include inside the little notebook. But first, I wanted to really use the bone folder to accent those creases And see, there you go. As you can see, when I was doing that, the one side just completely fell off. Now maybe it just didn't have enough time to dry, but I don't know. I'm not sure what was going on, because I decided to go ahead and use this tape, and it is super sticky as well. And even it was kind of having a hard time. I had to kind of keep using the bone folder and going over it once I get it stuck on. So yeah, I don't know, something, either the matte medium or the the Mod Podge. Yeah, something was going on there for sure. But as you can see, I go back to using my bone folder and the ruler to really make sure and give myself a little bit of space to account for the paper. In the fold, there were several little creases, so I just used the bone folder to, accent some of the creases. Now I'm about to make my paper pad now. This paper is actually, I believe I bought it as note cards. They didn't look the way I thought they would. I'm using hot glue to create the adhesive, and don't worry, this is a very low temp heat gun, so I did not burn myself at all. I have a piece of cardstock on the back, and so I added some hot glue to that. And again, make sure it's closing. And it does. Now I realized that something's missing and I needed to add some stamping. Of course, it would have been easier to do before I added my little block of paper. The paper pad got in the way for this next step too. This is where I was really stuck. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do for embellishments. But once I decided that I was going to give it to my mother, she loves fairies. So these are the only fairies that I had, and they were really super bright, and it just kind of seemed to not go with the piece as far as I was concerned. I mean, it was okay, but it was I just felt like I needed to tone them down just a little bit. So I add a little bit of white gesso, as you saw, mixed with some water, and just kind of painted it over. And it's mostly toned down. I thought that did a pretty good job. And I hit some of the flowers and butterflies as well. So I'm placing those down, and these are stickers, and of course with all that texture I knew that it was going to be an issue, so I go ahead and take it off and add some Mod Podge. And even the Mod Podge struggled a little bit. For the most part, it did a pretty good job, but I did have to go back and touch up some with some matte gel medium. As you can see, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out where to put that little flower, but I end up putting it in the first place I tried. So that's it. That is where I've finished as far as decorating the outside. Now I do want a way to close it. It's kind of bulky and it won't stay closed on its own. So I decided to use a button and just one piece of string. I believe this is baker's twine. I'm using a little Mod Podge to help the ends stay shut so that I can thread the button. I tie a knot in the back, And I believe I covered over with some Mod Podge and some matte gel medium. Yeah. Just to make sure it stays down. Also, the knot gives a little bit of a lift, as well as I hit it with a little bit of the hot glue. After a quick shot with a heat gun, I check it out to make sure it works. And it does. I'm almost done at this point, but I want to go and do a little bit of edging around the whole project. As you can see real quickly, something popped off. Well, it didn't pop off, it just pulled up a little bit, so I added some glue just to help stick the sticker back down of the fairy. I thought I would put a little knot at the end of the string as well, just so it doesn't fray. But here you can see I'm going to go around with some ink and just to kind of give it a nice finished look. The angles of the tag were a little tough to get to, so I had to fold it over. I decided to go ahead and ink up the folded edges as well. Even though it's in the middle, when you've got it in the wallet form, it still counts as the edge. I think that's it. Oh, I did write a little bit of a happy birthday note just to put in. I might redo that. That was done a little quickly. It says my mother. I'll do it again and take my time. But that's it. So here's a slower, well actually this is more of a real-time look to see how it turned out. I should mention when I looked at this footage, I realized how bare the inside looked. So I did go back and add some glimmer acrylic paint and a couple of sequins. So you'll see those changes in the pictures. I hope you like this project, and if so, I'd appreciate if you gave me a thumbs up, and definitely leave a comment and let me know what you like. What would you suggest I use as embellishments? I really struggled at that point. I appreciate you watching. Close-up pictures are coming up next. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day.